Hello and welcome to Voices of Culture podcast. Today we are episode 3 strong and we are keeping going, and thank you for keeping up on our social media, on our YouTube channel and our TikTok, Instagram and Facebook pages. Thank you so much for keeping us going. And today we have a very interesting guest and I'm glad to have him on board, and you're going to get very interesting perspective on Voices of Culture. So I want to welcome to this podcast today Allan. Allan is a very interesting individual with a very strong background in media, and is very opinionated on the different aspects of culture. So I want to welcome Allan. Hi, Allan.
Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Allan. Karibu sana. Thank you for
Asante
accepting
sana.
my short notice. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's okay. Anytime you can just ask me and I'll be here.
Yes, we last week we've had 2 guests so far, and two of the guests had the name Lulu and they were female. So we are shaking things a little bit and we want to get the male perspective on culture. Yes. So I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to ask you a very interesting question. I know when you go to a place you're asked, can you tell us your name and what you do? But I'm going to ask it with a twist. So I'm going to ask you this particular question, and just with a particular twist. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how it has influenced your views on culture?
My background is I'm coastal. I'm from the coast, and I've lived most of my life in Mombasa, and my extended family, all my relatives, we're all coastal people. So that background and lived in the coastal environment, I believe I came to learn a lot of different cultures, because even in the coast there are a lot of different cultures around. It's not just a mono whatever kind of culture or lifestyle. So all these different cultural perspectives have actually shaped the way I view culture and the way I relate to people and the way I interact with people. So generally speaking, my background is kind of a mixture of a lot of different cultures, even though it's coastal, you know.
Yes, I'm curious because I know you've traveled a lot. So as you're traveling outside of the coastal region to even outside the country, affected how you view yourself and how you define yourself?
You see, I believe that people remain who they are at their core. Doesn't matter where you go or who you interact with or which cultures you interact with outside there. So at your core, you will always be the same person. I mean, that's what I believe, and that is how I actually approach all my travels and all my movements around and all my interactions with other people from different cultures. That being said, you get to understand other people's perspectives and other people's opinions on how maybe they would live their lives, or how they would run their daily operations, and how they relate with each other in their own culture, leave alone how they would interact with people outside of their culture. So having been to different places, I can say it just broadened my perspective, my worldview on culture and how people interact and how people actually live their lives. But personally, I don't think it has changed the way I live my life, or what I believe, what I believe in, and what any other things that I feel like.
You bring a very interesting point. I think the podcast just dove in very deep, because I'm thinking when you talk about remaining who you really are at the core, while at the same time changing your perspective, I think it's easy. I don't know, where do you draw the line between you changing your perspective and you not changing who you are at the core? as a person?
I'm not okay. I don't think I meant changing your perspective, rather understanding other people's perspectives. You get, because if you're going to stay the same person, you just get to understand where other people are coming from. You get, it might not be something that you agree with, but then at the very essence of it, you just understand like this person has been raised a particular way, has been cultivated in a particular way, and this is how they view life. This is how they view interactions among themselves, with others, and the like. So for you to remain at the same at your core, what I mean is you get to see all those characters and all those different dynamics between other people and how they do their thing and all that. But then now for you, you see, sometimes you might see some you might see some activity being done, or some perspective that someone else brings in, and you might feel like maybe that's something I would like to do, or something like that. So then you try to change yourself to conform to that so that you can fit in.
The famous quote of Rome, or whatever, when you go to Rome.
Yeah, you have to conform and change and do what the Romans do.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case, because if you do not agree with what they're doing, and if it's not who you are,
you don't have to
at
change.
your core, you don't have to change.
Okay. So based off of that, I have a very I don't know, a definitive question. How would you define culture?
Culture, well, when I think of culture, what instantly comes to mind is tradition, and a way of life, and a way of understanding, and basically just a general worldview from a particular group of individuals. You get, and how people just interact and relate with one another, both socially, politically, economically, so those norms that a particular group of people, you see, how they just understand the way they're living their life in general. So it comes up in many different forms. It can come up in arts, it comes up in business, it comes up in just normal interactions between one another, gender relations and things of that nature. So and it's something that is cultivated over a period of time.
Okay. I'm thinking, okay, we have had what you call traditional culture before, before we go to what I will call modern culture. So what makes modern culture is, as per my perspective, technology. So would you say that we have a modern technological culture, or we just have a modern culture where we are adapting to new norms that were not there in the past? Or basically, what would be the with the increment of technology, what impact has it had on our culture?
Okay, in my opinion, when you talk about technology is not supposed to. Technology, I don't believe, creates a culture. You understand what I'm saying? It does not like create a new culture. Like you can say now we have a new culture or whatever. What I believe it does instead is it maybe it just brings it more out. Either it brings it out more to the public, or it just highlights it more.
The amplification.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
amplifies.
That's
Okay.
It kind of amplifies whatever culture already exists.
For instance, I'm trying to think. Let's say, I wouldn't say, okay, when you talk of music, for instance, traditional music that used to be played in traditional gatherings and all that, in the traditional sense of a tradition and the culture of our people, and enter new technology. What does new technology do? We are having beats that are produced by computers and all that.
Yeah.
So do you say that is a new culture on its own that has evolved from, the tradition that we used to beat drums and all that? Now we can beat drums on the computers and all that.
So, looking at that now, it comes to, people, you see with people will come and say, the music, for example, you spoke about music. People say, the music nowadays is not the same. People it's not natural. They're not using instruments more and things of that nature. You see, then enter technology. You find there's equipment that produces more sounds, clearer sounds, more precise sounds and things of that nature. And you come to see that the creative aspect of things, even if we go back generations and generations, before they even created the drum, maybe people were just hitting, regular stuff, maybe pieces of wood. So they changed from that, they created the drum. You see, from then they came with the xylophone, they came with all these other equipments. All these equipments came from, trial and error, trying to find sound, good sound and all that. Now we fast forward to this day, we have the keyboard, we have, all these types of instruments that create sound at a different level, and maybe even much better. So it just amplifies, like you said, it amplifies the quality of the sound, the type of sound and things of that nature. But at the core, the culture, the music culture still remains. If we take, it only changes in, maybe every generation has its own type of music. But I believe things are, they go around, they keep coming back.
They say nothing is new under the sun.
Nothing is new, exactly.
Yes.
So you get to see that thing, this type of, for example, when you brought up the issue of music, for Saudi Soul, whatever they're doing, like now the type of songs they do, like the rumba song, the rumba type of thing.
Yes.
That's an old school vibe. But trust me, you go listen to an old school rumba track and you listen to Sauti Sol, we'll gravitate to the Sauti one, because you'll see that sound, the engineering and all that is kind of crisp and clean because of technology.
Yes.
And it's not as crisp with this one. But now that nostalgia will make you say that this older track is a good track. You see? And then now we come to say, the lyrics, I don't know what, and this, you start kuchambua yani. But at the very essence, this is just the same genre,
just a different
vibe.
Okay. I know you've broken it very well down, and I think basically what you've given is what you'd call the good side of technology, or rather the good side of involvement, rather when you develop new ways of doing stuff, basically what technology is. So what would you say is the culture that we have created over time? What is the significant challenge that we are facing as a culture?
People would say westernization, maybe. You see, as Africans, we got the short end of the stick when it comes to stuff to do with culture, especially with, what happened in colonialism and, those older times, how our history got erased or things like that. So even as we speak right now, there's not that many documentation of our culture apart from what maybe our grandmothers and our grandmothers' mothers, at most it could go maybe 5, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations. You get, but then there's no documentation. So when we have just that generalization, like, oh, African culture, there's that African culture, there's that African norm that needs to be there. So that is what we are trying to say, that is now being influenced by now the West.
You got my mind rising crazy, because I'm thinking, when we say we don't have records.
No,
it's hard for you to trace your genealogy back to very long ago. Like you said, you can only go like 2, 3, 4 generations, and that's what you've been told by your grandparents. And based on our culture, because we do not have the access of technology of writing, what they used to do was do pass information through oral stories, right? But fast forward, we're in the technology age. What's stopping our generation from now trying to retrieve these records, trying to keep records of, the past generations for maybe the posterity?
The thing is, you see, erasing that culture was a deliberate effort, and it was done so that we don't get it back. That was the whole point.
Okay.
You see, so we had to create whatever little that we still did have. We had to stick with it, and we had to make it our own and make sure that we can run with it. You get, because right now, when we speak of culture and our traditions, you would go back to your mother tongue, or wherever your family comes from, your tribe, basically, and whatever your tribe believes in, and whatever they do, what they believe in, the religious whatever. But now that has been changed. Like right now, you can go 2, 3 generations, it's Christian. So we don't have that original religion that maybe if it's a Kamba, if it's a Kikuyu, if it's a what they used to do.
The ones that had the traditional names for the gods.
Yeah. So those things are not there anymore. You see, so we tried, and thing is, by removing those, we tried to incorporate them now in this new religion that came in. You see, it doesn't matter which religion you choose, but then you would try to, okay, now that Africanness, you bring it into the religion, and then now that became the norm, and that is now what the culture, generally speaking, the African culture is goes hand in hand with religion.
Okay,
you see, then now it comes to a point that now, when we have the technology and different world views, and we have influences from the West, we come now to see that now there's different perspective, especially maybe if you look at the LGBTQ thing, then we try and accept that kind of world view and bring it into our own culture. You see?
Yes. So I want to ask you a question on that point. Would you say the fact that our own, the what you call the original traditional culture got eroded away, and we've had to adopt into a different culture over time, the kind of impact it has had on our society, is it a good thing? Okay, I'm going to pick sides. I'll say most people have grown into a mentality where they just they're in a box. They want to get out of that box. And they believe it's someone else's fault that they are going through what they're going, and there's nothing they can do about it. They just wake up to live another day. But I want to think that despite the culture, despite the disadvantages that we have had, we still have a chance.
Of course we do. The thing is, you see, all these things have happened, and this is the world that we're in right now.
Yes.
So we have to accept how things are at the moment, and we have to forge a way of
cut through the forest.
Exactly. So what I can say is, being that we are in the space that we are in, there comes now the point of accepting and forging forward. That way, you come to realize that these different cultures and the diversity in them actually creates a beautiful thing. You see, because at the end of the day, in as much as culture has been eroded, but we came up and still picked up bits and pieces of it, and we still moved along with them, and we still have them with us up until now. You see, but then now these new perspectives that came in, we can also incorporate them into the culture. Apart from that, just understanding other people's views.
Before you go to that, because it's actually my next question, understanding other people's views, because you've gotten to interact with different people from different backgrounds. So in your opinion, rather, what did you say is the best way to better appreciate each other? What steps can we take to ensure that we promote cross-cultural interaction and communication and understanding?
This has to be a deliberate thing. You see, like it has to begin first of all at the base of the cultural spectrum. What I mean is, for example, in schools, you see, I'm not really a fan of these schools that, you know, for example, the religious schools that, you know, they just leave. If you're Muslim, you're just Muslim in the school, and if you're Christian, you're just Christian in school. If you're Indian, you're just Indian in that school. In my opinion, I believe that creates some sort of, you know, people feel like, okay, maybe I'm superior from the rest. But you see, being able to have that interaction at a young age with people from diverse backgrounds, it creates it creates that basis of, okay, such and such believes in such and such does this. So you get to understand them and understand other people. Growing up, in school, we were people from different backgrounds. You know, that's why I tell you, like, when you told me my influences, I was influenced from people from all sorts of background. I know people who used to believe in like traditional stuff, you know, like like African tradition, religion. Yeah. I know people that were into, you know, Christians, Muslims, Indians, you know, and Kando and Ivo, we had people from from different tribes in general.
Okay.
You get. But now from that beginning and cultivating that whatever through the school system is something that I believe would be able to create that sort of, you know, interaction. Another thing, when it comes to the thing of, now I'll get a little bit political.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. We are on the internet.
You see, yeah. Now you see the thing with the what are these counties? The county governments.
Yes.
I actually have a little bit of a problem with them, because now, fine, they try to you know, to make sure that people, like, for example, if you're in, let's say, if you're in Machakos, if you're elsewhere and stuff like that, you have to, you know, they actually ask you where you're from, your name and things like that. You see, the back of your ID.
Yes.
But I don't think that is a good way to go. Like, you come to Mombasa, for example, this is a metropolitan area. There are people from all over the country that are around here.
Yeah.
You see, but then now they look at the back of your ID, and you, for example, I grew up most of my life here. Back of my ID says a different county. So it becomes difficult for me to get like employment in Mombasa County, like in the county government. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You see, and to get employment in the county that's at the back of my ID also becomes difficult, because
you don't stay here.
Yeah, they'll look at my papers and say like, okay, you did most of your schooling in a different county.
Okay.
You get?
Yeah.
Same thing. I have a friend lived most of his life in Nyeri. Speaks perfect Kikuyu, by the way. But he's Kamba. Mother is Luo.
Damn.
And he's not even Kamba from Ukambani. He's Kamba from Shimba Hills.
Okay. That's a twist.
You get?
Yeah.
He's in the government now, working. But
before getting to
when
that position,
the first time he was deployed, he was taken to Kitui, some remote area of Kitui, thinking because his last name is Kamba, Kitui is his home county. You see?
Yeah.
Now, when they were doing their reshuffling, they took him all the way to Bomet County again, saying that this time they are removing people from their home counties. But this guy's home county is Kwale.
Damn.
You see?
Yeah.
Just because the last name is Kamba,
they assume they have to be from that location.
You understand?
Yeah.
So it comes to a point where identifying people with their tribes and their names doesn't really help.
Moving beyond the tribalism aspect, which is quite hard right here. Yeah. I would say we have had our own bit of challenges as a country over time.
Of course, everyone does.
There are some trends that have been there with culture, especially with the adoption of technology, especially with social media. So what did you say? What are some of the trends that you observed recently, and are they important?
Social media trends?
Not trends.
What sort of
trends in culture? Yes. For instance, I would say, I think more and more millennials and Gen Zs, they're being more intentional on how they interact with themselves, with their employers, with their families, and all that. That's just an example. So are there any trends that you maybe have observed when it comes to culture?
What I can say with regards to that is, you see, the newer generations, the Gen Zs, Gen Xs and stuff, for them, they're kind of having it a little bit easier when it comes to interacting in the corporate world and things like that, because there's a whole space that is out there, the online space, that actually gives them access to a lot of platforms and a lot of areas where they can just express themselves. You see, nowadays for you to start a company, it's like that. You just have a company and you can do your thing. So whatever you like doing, you don't have to, wait for employment and just run. You get, and that's because of the space that is out there. And that is because of the mindset that these young people have nowadays. You get, that way, we open up a situation where a guy with dreadlocks can get employment, because people just, the newer CEOs and the newer HRs look at your qualifications rather than your appearance too much. You get, because at the end of the day, it's what you're bringing to the table, and how much you're able to produce when
your productivity,
when push comes to shove. So the newer generations, I would say, the way they do things intentionally, like they just don't go with the norm anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the status quo, they just broken it. And they're just doing things that 10 years ago people would not agree with. But now they become like, it's the norm. You see, now moving forward, we're going to see a situation where people are more courageous in expressing themselves and in expressing themselves and in trying to um what was I saying? Just
Sorry for
interrupted
the
me a little bit.
interruption. Yeah, sorry. So you're talking about what you're going to see in the future, especially with the Gen Zs.
Yeah, in the future, we're going to see an environment where people actually have the courage to be themselves and to do incredible things, because the opportunities are there. Right now, people are. I see people out of high school traveling the world, and they don't have a buck in them. They don't have a shilling, but they're traveling the world because they find ways of doing it. Someone just hitchhikes or does this, does that intentionally. They just purpose to do it, and they do it.
Damn. I'm trying to relate all that you're sharing, and I'm trying to see, because I've seen it when you go to TikTok, when you go to all those platforms, you get to see these youngsters traveling all over the place, doing the different things.
And they don't have money.
Yes.
But they're able to do this. Someone just picks up his bicycle and a few equipment,
yes,
and he travels the whole world.
And then, a while back we used to think, it's the British guys who do that. You see them with their backpacks walking around. But I realized our youngsters as well as doing that, because I met this lady a while back, I think it's last year, in Diani, and she exactly was doing that. She was in her uni, and I think she was in her third year. Then she just woke up and decided, no, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And she packed up, didn't call her parents or anything. She just went all the way to Europe and started trekking from Europe, went all the way to Asia. And when I met her, she was in Diani. She was coming for what she called annual cleanse, where she fasts for 6 months, only surviving on juice. And it was like, damn.
You see?
Yes.
So people just in the future will just have that. It's actually happening now, not in the future. Like, people have that courage of, saying, hey, to hell with it. Let me just live life. You see, this no more hassle of waking up, going to work, coming back home tired, waking up again and doing the same thing just to get a living, the thing that our parents used to do. You see, these things are gradually changing. People are moving towards maybe self-sustainability. People are actually moving to the countryside nowadays, into the villages, to start farming and living off the land. You see, yeah. Because they want that freedom.
Yeah.
You see,
yeah.
And looking at it, you see now it's nothing new. That is just the life that our ancestors used to live.
So it's gone full circle.
Exactly. Things just coming back. The saying, the hen has come back to roost, or what's the saying? So at the end of the day, when it comes to like your friend, you're saying your friend that's traveling the world, you see, nowadays people don't value the college education as much. You see, because you come and take 2, 3, 4 years of your life trying to get a piece of paper that even eventually will just allow you to go and just limit you at some office somewhere or at some place somewhere, and you're not going to be living life. People nowadays want to live life, want to experience different cultures, different to see different points of view. And for you to be able to do that, you have to be a rebel somehow.
Yeah.
So that's the word that I can describe the current youth generation. They're rebelling against the norm, and it's scary for the people that that it's scary for the people that have grown into that have been accustomed to that old way of life. They've grown into that. They like that comfortability of being in one, one location.
Playing safe.
Yeah, playing a certain role. You have your 9 to 5. You have your money at the end of the month, though. So you have this routine that you have. But now the Gen Zs, they don't have a routine. They just wake up one day and say, I want to do this. They do it. And I believe that is how people should live their life. And that's how, when it comes to the issue of culture, that's how human, like at the core for humans, that's how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live free. But you see now the society creates some sort of limitations or some sort of way in which that you should live.
This is how the structure
boxes you in.
Okay, my takeaway from that: to hell with it. Let the hens come home to roosts.
Yeah, at the end of the day, nothing is new under the sun. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to finish off, and as we close, I want to ask you a very important question to our listeners. It will be very good for them. I know you read a lot, and there is a book probably you've read, and it has probably changed how you perceive things and how you view things. So what book would you recommend to our listeners? Probably maybe a piece of music as well, maybe a documentary that maybe might change their insights when it comes to culture. And why would you recommend it?
Okay. When it comes to okay, what I would really like for people to go and check out, especially with regards to culture, is a documentary by what's her name? Zainab who? I forget the name. She's a BBC. It's a BBC documentary. It's around, I don't know how many, around 22 episodes, but it's a documentary on the African culture. on the history of Africa, actually. You get? It brings out different I forget the name. Maybe if you can do a quick search for me.
Yes, I'm looking
Zainab,
for it.
The history of Africa or something.
You can go and
yeah.
try and look
So the reason why I want people to actually watch that series,
Mother Africa, a history of Africa.
No, that's not the one.
Okay. Zainab, what's her name?
Badawi, yeah, Zainab Badawi, I think.
Zainab Badawi. Okay, let me check for it. So you just give us the explanation as you look for it.
Okay. That documentary series speaks about the history of Africa in general. It starts with trivial things, how before colonialism, how people lived, the different cultures, the different kingdoms we had, empires, and those kinds of things. The whole the documented African culture, the kingdom of Aksum, the kingdom of the Mali Empire, the kingdom of in Zimbabwe. Forget the name.
Yes, it's actually the one, Mother Africa, a history of Africa with Zainab Badawi.
That's the one.
Mother Africa, a history of Africa with Zainab Badawi. I see she talks about diamonds, gold, and greed.
Everything.
Resistance and liberation, slavery and suffering. Oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. Coast and conquest.
Yeah.
City-states and civilization.
Yes.
Congo and the scramble of Africa. Damn, this is good. This is good.
She goes back in history.
Yes.
And then she comes slowly up until the current the current situation in Africa.
Okay.
So all the historical empires, and then slowly comes to the resources that are in Africa, gold, copper, and all that, and how rich the African continent actually is. And then now it comes to the scramble of Africa and all those that dark part of our history. Then now fast forward comes to the liberation of Africa, and then goes to creation of the new cities, and moving on and on up until the current level that Africa is at. And that will actually help people in understanding where we're from and how rich actually our continent is, because there's not much written information about the smaller bits communities of Africa.
Okay.
But then now there's actually a huge historical reservoir for the greater African continent that is out there that people actually need to understand.
Okay, that's very interesting. So if you missed on it, it's Mother Africa, History of Africa with Zainab Badawi. I think it's free on YouTube actually.
Yeah, it's free on YouTube.
It's free on YouTube.
There's no subscription.
You should watch it. You should watch it. And I want to quote a famous quote from one of the shows I used to watch back then. Ricky, Nikki, and Dicky, something like that on Nickelodeon. If you fail to learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Of course, yeah.
So thank you, Allan. This has been a very good conversation, quite intellectual one at that. And if you're listening to us, make sure that you listen to it, share to your friends, make sure you subscribe to all our various channels, and we are looking forward to hearing from you as well, and give us feedback. What do you think about our podcast? And see you next week, and thank you so much for listening in. Bye bye. Ciao.